Hello, how are you guys doing tonight? Good to hear from y'all again. It's me, Beaky. This story is called Mental Patient. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. A young woman had just finished nursing school and was in dire need of experience. She volunteered at a mental health clinic near her home because it was her first real job. She didn't have to deal with any of the really dangerous mental patients. Instead, they assigned her to work with the less violent patients, the suicidal people, the depressed, those who heard voices in their head, those who never said anything at all. She worked with a lot of mental patients, but her favorite was an old man named Arthur. He was a mutant. He never said a word. He just sat in a chair and nodded his head. As the days passed by, she became very close to Arthur. He was a very good listener. She would talk to him for hours, and he would just listen and nod his head. She told him about her parents, her friends, and all her problems, everything that happened to her in life. Most people would have been bored, but not Arthur. He just sat there and nodded, and she moaned and complained to him about all the little things that were bugging her in life, and he always just nodded. After several months of working with Arthur, the nurse decided he didn't belong there. He couldn't be very happy sitting in a room by himself, nodding all day. That evening, she had a meeting with her supervisor of the clinic. She said that Arthur didn't pose a threat to anyone and asked him to be allowed to leave and live out on his own. He was a gentle soul, and he was able to feed and groom himself, and he deserves to be freed. There's nothing wrong with him, she said. Arthur just nods. But the supervisor did not agree with her. But the young nurses wasn't about to take no for an answer. So every day working with Arthur, she would come to her supervisor and argue with him about the pros and cons of releasing Arthur into the community. Eventually, the day her persistence paid off. The supervisor finally admitted defeat and let Arthur go. The nurse was overjoyed and rushed to tell Arthur the good news. She told him he's free now and he could leave the clinic and go live on his own. Arthur just nodded. She wrote her name and address on a piece of paper and thrust it into Arthur's hand. She kept telling him that she was really going to miss him. Most of all, she would miss talking to him every day. The young nurse told him to write to her as soon as possible. She wants to hear how things turned out for him after his release. Arthur just nodded. The nurse went home that evening feeling very pleased with herself, and she finally had managed to get Arthur free from the insane asylum. She told her parents and her sister the good news. After months of hard work, it finally paid off. And when she went to bed that night, she fell asleep satisfied with a smile on her face. In the middle of the night, she was rudely awakened by sounds of screaming. It seemed to come from downstairs. Frightened, she gathered her wits about her. She jumped out of bed, bravely crept down the darkened staircase. There in a small hall, she found a pile of bodies of her mother, father, and sister. They were laying in a pool of blood. She bent over them, trying to see if they were still alive, and she saw a shadow moving across the hallway. She looked behind her and was confronted by a large figure standing motionless in the doorway. The scream died in her throat. It was Arthur. He was just standing there, staring. His eyes were wild, and in one hand he held a bloody axe, in the other He was holding a piece of paper. The same piece of paper that she had written her name and address on. The young nurse was shaking with fear, and as Arthur raised the axe high above his head, his eyes were bulging out of their sockets. "Are you going to kill me?" she croaked. Arthur just nodded. If you like the story, leave a comment down below. Share it around. Leave a like and watch it twice. Have a safe night, guys. And make sure y'all do a little more research into the mental patients if you're doing that kind of stuff. I'd be kind of worried if a guy nods a lot. So that's a warning sign. See you around.